8.
You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales. Streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
2, 1.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? Dan better be dressed up. I don't have a lot of costumes. I mean, I think I have a Spider-Man mask here on the desk somewhere. So yeah, no costume for me. But I do have a strange story for you. Normally I do jokes, but I don't need to do a joke today because I had a very weird morning yesterday, and it started very strange. I got up, had to go to the wound care center, got up a little bit early so I could take the cans out to the curb. Today's trash day, so I took them out yesterday. I get up, go outside, open the gate, and I turn around and I look on the ground, and there's a chicken in my breezeway. And I don't mean like a bucket of Colonel Sanders or somebody left, like a frozen chicken fell out of a bag. I mean a live chicken just walking around my breezeway. Now, this might not seem odd to some people who live maybe in a little more rural areas. I don't live in a rural area. I live in the suburbs. I live in basically a track home area, where a lot of the houses look the same. There's no chickens in this area. There's no place to have chickens in this area. There should be no chickens in this area. But there's this little chicken on the ground, and he's kind of she is in an awkward place, and I start talking to the chicken because that's what I do. And I'm like, you're not stuck back there, are you? You can get out, right? And I'm trying to move the trash cans. And the neighbor's dog, Lobo, that I've told you guys about before too, notices there's a chicken and starts barking like crazy. So I'm having a conversation with Lobo about being quiet. And I'm having a conversation about the chicken to make sure it's going to be okay. And as I'm moving the trash cans, the chicken flies up onto the brick wall. And I'm like, okay, it can fly. That means this is either a very young chicken, they haven't got around to clipping its wings, or this is not a pet chicken or something. This is just a stray chicken from the wild, which again makes no sense. So I start dragging the trash cans out, and at one point I get too close to the chicken. It flies up and over the house and it's gone. And I'm like, okay, that's going to be the weirdest thing today. That's just going to be the weirdest thing today. And I take the cans out, I get in the truck, and I'm driving to the wound care center. And the traffic is by far the worst that I have dealt with going to the wound care center in the last 2 years. Just like 4 times as bad as any other time. And it's consistent the entire way. Normally, there's a part that's a little more back roady, or not a lot of people travel, so it's easy. No, horrible traffic the entire way. I'm 10, 15 minutes late. So I get there and do the stuff, changing bandages. The nurse comes in to put the new bandages on. Another nurse pops her head in and says, hey, the doctor needs you for something. Let me take over here. This other nurse comes in, starts wrapping my legs, and for some reason decides to tell me that the previous night she had gone to dinner with her family, and her son, 11-year-old, who this is the same nurse that I had made a Raiders beanie for, and for her husband, and her son stole it and wears it all the time. So, long story, I know, but so she starts wrapping my legs and is telling me that her son has decided what he wants to be for Halloween. Now, mind you, this is Monday around 10 a.m. Halloween is Tuesday, today. So his decision is a little short on time. and he decides he wants to be Thor. Well, she says, I can put a makeshift costume together, and I think I even have a blonde wig. She goes, but I don't have a hammer. And I thought for a second, and I went, I have Thor's hammer. She's like, what? I said, I have a replica of Mjolnir. She goes, well, that's great, but, I don't want you to have to drive all the way home and get it. And, because, it's tomorrow, and I said, it's in the back of my truck. It's like, what? I said, I have Mjolnir in the back seat of my truck right now. I'll go get it as soon as we're done. She's like, well, what? Why do you have Mjolnir in the back of your truck? And I said, because I went to a costume party where I went as Endgame Thor or Fat Thor or whatever you want to call him. And I've been a little lazy taking it back in the house. So the hammer's in my truck. She's like, well, that's awesome. That is great. I said, okay. So we wrapped up and I went outside and got it and came back in. And when I came back in the lobby now were all the nurses and my doctor, because suddenly they all want to see me coming in with Thor's hammer. So I walk in, I give her the hammer and stuff. And the doctor looks at me and goes, you carry this in your truck? I said, well, not normally. He says, so if I needed Captain America's shield, you'd run out to your truck and get it? I said, no. I'd have to go home for that one. And he laughed. He said, so why was it in the truck? And I told him, I said, well, I went to a costume party and, I went as Thor and I had it in the truck. He says, when was this costume party? And I said, well, let me think. It's October. So 2 years ago. Yeah, I've been driving around with Mjolnir behind my driver's seat in my truck for a little over 2 years now. And suddenly I needed it and had it. So stray chickens and Mjolnir. That was my morning yesterday. Stay tuned for the Dan Wickline Show. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. The other funny thing is when I brought the hammer in, it's got that little yoke on it, the strap. And the doctor goes, what's this for? Like to hang it on your keychain? And I said, no, Thor holds it and spins it around so he could fly. And I turned around and I went, I've been a geek for a very long time. So, yep, that was my morning yesterday. All right, guys, we have news. We're going to talk about the latest episode of Loki. It is, of course, Halloween. Show-wise tonight, the Minute to Skim It is happening with Jay and Kyle and Miss Jen. They've got a bunch of great books. A lot of them are horror-themed books or Halloween-themed books. And then tonight we have something special. Mint Hunter wasn't able to do his show this evening, but Alex, or the collecting dude as he calls himself, is going to be doing a half-hour takeover at 8 p.m. Eastern. So he's got a bunch of really cool books. So you'll want to stick around for that. So if you saw the initial post we did today saying the Dan Wickline Show and Minute to Skip was going, but no Mindhunter, well, we got the Collecting Dudes Halloween half-hour takeover at 8 p.m. So 8 p.m. Eastern. All right. Hello to Kenneth. Hello to Triple B. And hello to Leonard. Good to see you guys. Got a lot of interesting news. I do want to address what happened over the weekend. We had 2 passings. Of course, the first one was Richard Mole, Bull Shannon from Night Court, the voice of Harvey Dent / Two-Face from Batman the Animated Series. He was in just a ton of great stuff. He was even the first immortal that Connor McLeod and Duncan McLeod faced in the when the Highlander movie series went to TV and they had the crossover with the 2 McLeods. He was the guy they fought. I got to meet Richard at Monsterpalooza back in 2006. If you look on my social media, you'll see a picture of the 2 of us together. He was just a super sweet, nice guy. I just found out this last weekend that he was the son-in-law of Milton Berle, which just fascinates the hell out of me. But I loved Night Court growing up. I loved that show. I even went and saw a taping of it when I was in high school. So, yeah. So loss of Richard Mole, he was 80. Not a surprising loss, but still a sad loss. The surprising loss, of course, was Matthew Perry, who passed away at 54. And I do love all the tributes and stuff that are going out to him. He really was a very good actor. I was a fan of his. I stole some of his comic stuff, comic timing, and the way he delivers things when I was younger. And I wasn't very confident in telling jokes and talking to people. I grew up in a household with some very larger than life people who, always controlled the room and could make anybody laugh. And when you're around that, you're not confident in saying jokes and stuff. And I stole some stuff from him, some of the timing, some of his cadence and stuff. So I did feel close in that sense. But yeah, at 54, I know they're doing a lot of toxicology reports. A lot of people are saying, doesn't make sense for a 54-year-old man to suddenly drown in his own jacuzzi. But my guess at this point is because of his substance abuse, his heart was not as strong as it used to be. He spent the day playing pickleball, stopped early because he was feeling fatigued. He went back to his house, got in the jacuzzi, sent his assistant to go get him a new iPhone and pick up his prescription glasses, and which is weird because normally you have to do that yourself. But and when they got back, he had drowned in the jacuzzi. Because of his years of substance abuse, the alcohol, the painkillers, it damages your heart and it doesn't repair itself. I know this because my sister had a similar thing at 52. After years of substance abuse, she had cleaned up her life, was taking care of her grandkids, was really putting in effort and making a better life for her and her grandkids. And she suddenly had a heart attack she got out of the shower, had a heart attack and died. And there was no pre-warning or anything, but because of her the things she had done earlier in life, she had this condition and it wasn't predictable. So, yeah. So I'm not surprised in that sense. And I hear a lot of people like, oh, a 54-year-old man just doesn't, it's like, I'm sure it's all going to make sense when the final autopsy comes out. So, also, you pointed out Richard Roundtree did pass away. That is true as well. The original Shaft, another great actor, from the 70s. So those are your three. They always go in threes, right? But so it was a pretty sad weekend for that. But all right, let's move on to the news itself. We got lots of it. Marvel is increasing the advertising for the Marvels with 2 small clips. Now, we talked last week about the rumor about who may appear and the ending credits or the post-credit scene of the Marvels. And we talked about the idea that perhaps an incursion plays into this movie. Well, they released 2 clips. The first one I absolutely loved. It's this fast-paced action scene where it starts with Carol in the Khan's living room protecting Kamala's parents from a couple Kree warriors. And then they switch and Kamala's there. And then they use their powers again. There's another switch. Kamala ends up on a Kree ship, creates a dome over them, and ends up bringing the, they switch again. And now she ends up in Nick Fury's office with 2 Kree soldiers, and they fight together to take out the Kree. It is a really fast-paced, kinetic scene, but it's also fun. Kamala is Aman Vellani brings a lot of heart, but also a lot of humor to what she does. And there's an interaction between her and Samuel L. Jackson, and it just looks like that's going to be fun. I'm really starting to look forward to this movie because I think it's going to have the heart and the humor that the first Captain Marvel didn't have. Where I liked most of the first Captain Marvel, it needed a little more humor and it needed a little more heart. And I think we're going to get that with the addition of Aman Vellani and Tiona Paris. So it's going to be interesting. The second thing, they put another clip out, and it's a short clip. You barely see anything, but there's a voiceover from Monica that says, there's a different reality bleeding into ours, which I think pretty much confirms the idea that there's an incursion going on. So that whole rumor that starts with the idea that there's an incursion, a lot more valid now. What the end credit scene is, there's the 2 different rumors, one that what it used to be and what it's going to be. We'll see what it ends up being. But, all right. Now, I'm not going to go deep into these 2, but I was reading the news, and these 2 movies kind of surprised me because, well, the first one has Lance Henriksen from Millennium and Pumpkin Face and a bunch of other movies, and Lou Gossett Jr. from An Officer and a Gentleman and Iron Eagle are in a movie together, a new horror movie called Awake the Reaper. So that was a little surprising because I haven't seen Lou Gossett Jr. in a movie in a very long time. I thought he either retired or that perhaps he had passed because I just hadn't heard from him in a long time, Well, couple spots down story-wise is another story about a movie coming out. Chuck Norris and the Beastmaster himself, Mark Singer, are in a new action movie called Agent Recon. When was the last time you saw Mark Singer in anything? I remember him from V. I remember him from the Beastmaster and the movie If You Could See What I Hear. That's it. I think he might have popped up on the Arrowverse as something, as a colonel. I'm vaguely remembering that. A colonel or a general in on Arrow when they were doing the flashbacks, and Oliver was in Hong Kong, or when he was off the island during the flashbacks. Yes, General Matthew Shreve. So that's the last time I saw him in anything. So it's just really weird that I'm seeing these two sets of headlines, and it's Lance Henriksen, Lou Gossett Jr., Chuck Norris, and Mark Singer all starring in movies. It's like, wow, I'm having flashbacks. So, all right. Let's move on. If you guys are curious what's going on with Constantine 2, Francis Lawrence gave an update on the development of it. This, of course, would star Keanu Reeves as a sequel to his movie from 2005. Lawrence said, so Constantine 2 got obviously held up by the writer's strike, and we had to jump through a bunch of hurdles to get control of the character again, because other people had control of the Vertigo stuff, but we have control now. He went on to say, Keanu and Akiva Goldsmith and I have been meeting and have been hashing out what we think the story is going to be, and there's more meetings of those that have to happen. The script has to be written, but really hoping that we get to do Constantine 2 and make a real rated R version of it. So if you're someone who's like, that Keanu Reeves version of Constantine was the bomb, daddy, there's a chance you're going to get more of it. Just saying. So, you guys know about the whole Martin Scorsese thing, him kind of picking on Marvel, saying that superhero movies are going to ruin cinema. Well, Avengers Endgame co-director Joe Russo of the Russo brothers had a little fun and poked back at Martin Scorsese over the weekend. There is a clip of Martin Scorsese talking to his dog, trying to get him to act, telling him to look sad. And we find out that Scorsese's schnauzer's name is Oscar. And, it came across that maybe he named it Oscar, or it may not actually be named Oscar, but he said it because, he wins Oscars. Well, Russo shows that clip and then stitches in a clip of himself going, aw, he's got a dog named Oscar. And then it cuts back to him and he's petting his own dog. He goes, isn't that cute, box office? And of course, that's his way of saying that we may not win Oscars, but we do win the box office. So now Joe's getting a lot of backlash for it, but I think it's kind of funny because I don't know why Scorsese's even saying stuff, but a little tiny slapback's probably not a bad thing because it's not that bad. So, all right, we are going to talk about Loki, but I got two, I don't know about stories, but comments from people working on Loki that I'm going to throw out there. The head writer, Eric Martin, was talking to the Hollywood Reporter about the that ending of the fourth episode. Now, they set it up kind of interesting because if you think about it, no, that's not the, no, this is the one about the fourth episode. This is about time travel and how Loki seems to be breaking the time travel rules that were set up in Avengers. Well, he does this. He says he didn't necessarily plan to do it. It just kind of happened organically. And he says, it starts with Mobius and Loki going through the TVA headquarters to meet with Ouroboros to find how to stop Loki from time slipping. And Obi concludes that they'll need to build a temporal oral extractor, which Loki talked him into doing in the past. So the very idea that they say in Endgame that can't happen, which is you can't go in your past and change your future. The Hulk has that big speech about it. They're doing in Loki. He went back and talked to a young OB who then created the device and had it when Mobius is there. Well, the reason this works is because it shouldn't be, hey Clayton, it shouldn't be possible for the time slipping to happen. And the reason is because they don't actually have time at the TVAs. They don't age. So someone shouldn't be able to travel through time in the TVA, which means that there are different rules within the TVA. And there's kind of making them up as they go along. He says he wasn't really planning to screw it up, but basically what happened is Loki was time slipping. OB says that's not possible. And his thought was, well, if it's not possible, how is it happening? And realize that be the good driving force for the story. So just because it's happening in Loki doesn't mean it would happen anywhere else, because the TVA kind of has its own rules. Now, the other thing about Loki is executive producer Kevin Wright was talking about the ending of episode 4 and kind of gave an ominous warning. He said, look, with what happens at the end of episode 4, we don't know where anybody is or where they're going or if they're alive. I think the thing that I would say is, if we were able to get back to the TVA, do Renslayer and Miss Minutes know what needs to be done to get time and reality back on track? Is Victor a key element? I mean, obviously they felt like he was for the TVA. I would suggest that maybe reality is an even graver danger now, because even without Victor Timely, the warning still holds true that the war is coming. The TVA, in Loki's opinion, was the only thing that might stand between the war and reality crumbling. If somehow they are able to get reality back after episode 4, I would say they still have a very serious problem to deal with, and they maybe have just lost a very valuable tool in Victor Timely, who was essential to getting the mission back on track. So it sounds like things are a lot more dire than we're even believing in Loki. So, okay, that is the news. We will take a quick break, and when we come back, we will talk about that 4th episode of Loki. Be right back.
Did you know that every Experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise. A promise of adventure. A promise of excitement. A promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey. And behind every page, there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
According to a statistic that I just made up, people spend 4 hours a day changing the television channel. People who watch The Experience don't do that. Save yourself a ton of time by tuning into The Experience and enjoying our new original programming 7 days a week. And then tell your friends. Think about the money they could save on batteries in the remote alone just by tuning into The Experience. Find out more by scanning the QR code below.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
Hey everybody, welcome back. One little thing just popped up. We were talking a little bit ago about the new teasers that Marvel is putting out for The Marvels. And I said that Monica Rambeau has a voiceover that says there's a different reality bleeding into ours. Well, it turns out when she's saying that, on the screen is this cosmic looking scene that's like blues and purples and stuff, but you see little hexes as well. So like that little barrier or the jump points they use and stuff. Well, she says that line, and across the screen it says, it goes from what to comes next. So you see the words comes next across this scene. And then as she finishes the sentence, the letters fade away, and Nick Fury says, "They're here." But as the words comes next fades away, one letter stays on the screen longer. The X. And when he says they're here, only the X is still on the screen. Now that might tie into the rumored end credit scene. So just saying. All right, let's go ahead and jump into Loki episode 4 of season 2. Now, the big thing about this episode is it's all done, or it's mostly done at the TVA. And those are interesting episodes. They're kind of bottle episodes, and they're cool. But it's a very fast paced. There's some really gratuitous graphic stuff going on. We really see how over the top Miss Minutes has become. You know, there's the scene where Renslayer and her show up to talk to Docs and her group, and only X5 is willing to join them. And she busts out that cage thing, the square, and basically kills them, crushes them to death. And the creepiest part of it is the look on Miss Minutes' face, the absolute joy and glee that she appears to be having watching all of these people die. Where I thought episode 3 was as creepy as it was going to get when she started coming on to Victor Timely. But damn, that's just... And the way they handled all of that was pretty interesting, because it's like you don't see the actual squishing, but you, like, later on when B-15 walks in, finds the leftovers, and you can hear the dripping through the grate. And then it cuts to the hot chocolate machine pouring a cup of hot chocolate. It's like, oh my God. Oh, they're that's just, it's gross, but well done. Um, by the way, I've seen a lot of people reacting funny to that machine. I've heard some people say the term of soup, the fact that there's a soup setting on the machine. If you've never seen a vending machine like that, then okay, maybe that seems weird. I spent part of my college years working for a vending machine company, filling a machine, not quite that old, but that type, where you have coffee, tea, hot cocoa, and hot soup as options. And it's you just fill the containers with the powdered stuff. It mixes in the hot water and it gives you the different stuff. And you've got a cream one and a sugar, but there are so many people out there freaking out because there's soup in that machine. And I even heard one person saying, "Is it hot chocolate soup?" It's like, no, it's not hot chocolate soup. It's chicken noodle soup or chicken flavored soup. It's not hot chocolate soup. But I did like the fact that Victor Timely, with everything else going on at the TVA and all the devices and time travel and stuff, he also gets fascinated by the idea of a machine that makes hot cocoa. This is the same guy that made a chair that cooled beverages. So beverages at the proper temperature is right in his wheelhouse. The build up to all of that was pretty interesting. We finally find out who prunes Loki from the first episode. And I think most people guessed that he was pretty much going to end up pruning himself somehow. And that I like the fact that they, that OB comes up with the idea of rebooting Miss Minutes and that they might lose the security stuff at the TVA and that people would be able to use magic again. And both Loki and Sylvie at the same time are like, do it. I thought that was great. But the real surprise, and I think this caught everybody by surprise. I don't think anybody, and if you're somebody who, it's like, oh yeah, I see this is going to happen, then say so. Because this, I think it blindsided everybody when Victor put on the suit to go out there and fix the loom and immediately walked outside and got turned into spaghetti. Now, they've been setting that up. They've talked about spaghettification. We've seen it as a word on the floor going into that room. And eventually we were going to have to see spaghettification. And I thought we'd see it like with, we've seen in some clips where a record is being turned into spaghetti, or the clock, or the viewer at the monitor in the TVA. I didn't expect to see Victor Timely spaghettified to the point where you see his bones. And I'm thinking, you just did an entire murder scene in another room off camera, not showing us the gore, and then you end with a guy being turned into spaghetti. And I really want to know, what is Marvel's hang up now with spaghetti people? Because that's the third time they've done that. Mr. Fantastic in Multiverse of Madness. The already giant man version of Ant-Man in Quantum Mania. And now Victor Timely. It's not cool. It's creepy. It's gross. 3 times is the max. No more. No more spaghettification. But I think the big thing we need to talk about is, what does all this mean? What happens next? because the way they ended it, it's like everything's done. Timeline's broken. Just the loom is going to break. The TVA is destroyed. What does this mean for the Marvel Universe? Does this mean there's thousands of timelines now? Are we heading directly into the Time War? What does all of this mean? But what I think we're going to get, one second. I think what we're going to get, and there's some clips from the trailers, and there's that new trailer that came out, is because Loki was time slipping before, he doesn't get caught up in this, and he has the opportunity to undo it. Now, whether this is going to be one of those time loop things where he's stuck in a time loop, he only has a certain amount of time, and he keeps doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it until he gets it right. Or he is outside of time and is trying to rebuild things. One of the two. And we've seen in clips of the people that were in that room, we see Casey and Sylvie and Mobius in and B-15 in other lives. You know, B-15's a doctor. It looks like Casey is climbing through a gutter system. Mobius is selling jet skis, which should surprise nobody. And we see Loki kind of jumping around. So, like I said, one of the things is going to happen. And Loki's going to get a chance to put this back together. And I think they're following the pattern of season 1. Because if you think about it, the 4 episodes were all about... the first episode was catching Loki. The second episode was getting him to help go after Sylvie. The third episode was all about Sylvie. And then the 4th episode was taking down the Timekeepers. Well, so far, in this one, we had Loki reestablishing who he was and what's going on. Then taking down X5 and stopping Dox. Then we end up with Victor Timely. So where Sylvie became the star of episode 3, season 1, Victor became the star of season 3 of episode 2, or season 2. I'm saying that backwards, but... And then episode 4 ends with that cliffhanger where we don't know what's going on. Well, that's when Loki got pruned and ended up in the void. And episode 5 was all in the void. So I think episode 5 of this new season is going to be all about Loki time slipping around and trying to fix the TVA. And in the final episode, we're going to find out who the real big bad is, just like we found out about He Who Remains in the final episode of season 1. I think they're following that pattern because it worked really well the first time, so why not do it again? So now there's been a lot of different odd stuff out there. A lot of weird rumors. I've heard somebody who thinks that Ravonna is a Kang variant. I don't see them doing that because they've already kind of got that relationship between Loki and Sylvie. I've heard people thinking that Loki is going to be the one who ends up building the TVA, and they point out how parts of the TVA look almost like Asgard. Like with that bridge going out, there's kind of like the Rainbow Bridge. Another theory I've heard is that OB is actually Kang, and that the Victor Timely character is a fill-in to protect OB. You know, and that we're eventually going to learn that, and then that the Kangs we've seen so far are fakes. So they're going to change the character. And I think that's getting driven by the fact that we still don't know what's going to happen with Jonathan Majors. And the idea is if you lose Jonathan Majors but replace him with Ke Huy Quan, that's not a bad thing. So I'm hoping Jonathan Majors stays. I think he's doing a great acting job. And I really hope that he didn't do what he's accused of doing. But that has to be worked out in court. But yeah, it's been pretty interesting so far, and I'm really curious where it's going to go next. But yeah, that whole episode just took place in the TVA. It was basically a bottle episode. So that means this next episode is probably going to be jumping around to all these different places, like the jet ski store and wherever Casey is and whatever office B-15's working in, and the record store where we find Sylvie. And then who knows what episode 6 is going to be. This is not an easy series to predict because of the time stuff. Jay says, you know who's probably behind all of this? Are you thinking Mephisto? Kevin. That would be interesting too. So, all right. So we got episode 5 is going to drop Thursday night. And I was a little surprised because at the end of episode 4 of season 1, they gave us the post-credit scene to show us that Loki was still alive. We did not get a post-credit scene here. So it's much more vague. But because we get trailers and stuff, what's interesting is there's a couple scenes in the mid-season trailer they put out that look like they're from previous episodes. And that could mean a couple different things. Is that scene takes place again because we're looping? Or it means they really just took it from another episode so to throw some people off, you know? Like there's a scene in the new trailer that shows somebody working the, putting the device in at the end of the bridge by the loom and hitting the button. And it's like, that's very similar to what Mobius did. And you don't see the face, but I see a lot of people going, well, Victor Timely is going to get a chance to fix that. I don't know if he is, or if that's just borrowed from earlier. You know, we also see Loki walking across the bridge without a suit on. So I'm very curious on this one. I don't have a lot of great ideas on how this is going to wrap up. I'm really just enjoying it and can't wait to see what they're going to do with the last 2 episodes. I'm not even at the point where I'm like, how are they possibly going to wrap this up? No, I have complete faith that they're going to wrap this up and then it's going to be bizarre and it's probably going to lead straight into somewhat of Deadpool 3 because the rumor is that TVA is going to be in Deadpool 3. So there needs to be some form of TVA and that eventually we get the Kang Dynasty. So there needs to be some kind of Kang somewhere. But how they're going to do it and what they're going to do, I have honestly no idea. So, all right, let's take our final break and we will come back and wrap up the show. Be right back.
What if Hans Gruber from Die Hard had to battle the Joker from Batman the Animated Series in a dance battle? Or who would win in a race between Baby from Baby Driver and Snidely Whiplash? If Austin Powers and Shrek found themselves in a hot dog eating contest, who would emerge victorious? These are the questions we talk about on Nerd Killer Warfare. Debate the most absurd questions you've ever heard in popular culture. Register now by scanning the QR code or visiting bit.ly/EXP casting. Programming on the EXP is made possible by viewers like you, or your local comic shop, or that Kickstarter you backed, or the publisher you like, or comic industry professionals who want to share a message with the world. Really, anyone who wants to advertise with us can. If you're interested in seeing a product you know and love, or are creating, or are publishing, or are involved with, advertised here on The Experience, and having your message shared with our viewers, please reach out by scanning the QR code below or visiting our website and using the contact form. Go follow The Experience on TikTok at @the_EXP1 or scan the QR code on the screen. Our TikTok is like everywhere else we are, except you only have to deal with us for a minute. Seems like a win-win to me.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Death Wickedline Show. I'm not quite sure what we're doing the rest of this week. I am going to, I have been waiting to see A Haunting in Venice. I didn't get to the theater to see it, and it's already going to be on Hulu starting, I believe, last night. So there's a good chance I'm going to watch it tonight or tomorrow. So when I do, we'll do a show about that, because you guys know how much I love Agatha Christie movies, and Kenneth Branagh doing Agatha Christie movies. So that's going to be a show. We're trying to set up some interviews, and I'm trying to work out, I have the potential of bringing in my first correspondent. I have someone who's going to come on and talk about Five Nights at Freddy's, mainly because I'm not a horror guy, but we want to be able to cover horror. So I am leaning towards this particular correspondent to cover those kind of movies for me and some of the other movies. So working all that down, and when I have that locked in, we'll make that happen. So, all right, guys, it is Halloween. Remember to be safe out there, and remember to have fun, and to check your candy, whether it's your candy, your kid's candy, because sadly, there's still a lot of weird people in this world. That movie is not horror. Five Nights at Freddy's is not horror? Okay. I still haven't seen it. Even though it's on Peacock, I could watch it for free. But, I want to give this guy a shot anyway. Just getting to make it happen. So, all right. So we're going to wrap it up there. I hope you all have a great Halloween. Have fun. We will see you tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere The Experience is all the time.